Hi, everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean, again, the collective, all of you. I really was very excited to ask to speak today because I've been really wanting to be of service to humanity. Within the scope of that, I wanted to share with you that most of us don't really understand that every single one of our thoughts turns into gross matter. And gross matter really has a lot to do with the physical realm. Did you guys know that the universe is less than 8% physical form, physical matter, universe? So, again, not this planet, but the universe is less than 8%. And so, if we look at this from this concept, a lot of people have done work around this. And this is where the authors I was saying that I'm going to mention. One very interesting one, again, Napoleon Hill. The other one is Helena. Oh boy, I cannot believe I'm like getting stuck on her name. Blavatsky. Okay, Helena Prevokna Blavatsky did a lot of occult writings in the 1800s, which I think is pretty cool. Joe Dispenza nowadays has really been leading the movement of You Become Your Thoughts, but before him, there was somebody named Abd. So this is a very difficult word name. The first part of that name is ABD. Second part of that name is RU. Third part of that name is SHIN. He wrote a lot of interesting books, but one of the most wonderful ones is called Into the Light of Truth. Look that up. Anyway, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky really changed things, and then shortly thereafter, Edgar Cayce, who was known as the sleeping prophet. And as some of you know, a lot of people used to be, when I was in New York, they would say, hey, you're just like Edgar Cayce. And I thought, well, but I don't have to be asleep because I'm in a different consciousness. But all of these wonderful leaders, Dolores Cannon is another one, by the way. She did a lot of readings in public for people. And wow, she really developed a wonderful quantum hypnotherapy technique that you guys can research at your own time. Joseph Murphy, he went a lot through the more religious content of a way of thought, and you could find really wonderful information on Joseph Murphy. That he's part of the morning practice I do, by the way, where I call it friendly brainwashing. As you know, or some of you who don't, a lot of people have said that that's kind of what I do for a living, friendly brainwash. So Joseph Murphy is another one. Louise Hay, she's just mind-blowing. Anyway, they were at the forefront of transferring us from this fourth dimension way of consciousness into what I'm terming sixth dimension plus. They say that there's 13 to 16 dimensions. I don't know. And who's they really? But before we go into all of that neuro-emotional healing technique, I'm going to go into our outline. Oh, great, Mavi. In our outline, first, we're going to open up with a specific intent. So right now, I'm going to ask all of you to think in your mind's eye, because this is going to be a very emotional / psychological technique that we're going to be doing, and by default, of course, spiritual. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to really put in an intent. Hey, I've got this sort of situation going on right now, a challenge, an issue, and we will be going to the initial birth of that trauma, which is stuck in the back of your head, but through this exercise, I will show you how to do that. Next, why now and who am I? For those of you who don't know me, I would like to introduce myself, and in that describe the why now. As some of you may know, I was born with the ability to hear and see. Some people call it ESP, psychic abilities, clairaudient, clairvisual, clairsentient, clairvoyant, medium, channel, or whatever you call it. I was born this way, and I spend the rest of my life trying to figure out why it is that I could hear and see things that others couldn't. And because when I was very young, being raised in South America and being told I was going to hell, I had to develop how to best work within the realm of what I do and why people do what they do. So my life's mission became to help people find their answers in love and money. Those are the two essential things of what goes array or dis-ease. When somebody is not in complete comfort, they're not at ease, they're dis-ease. When we are dis-ease, we're not centered again, and I want you to think of center as the yin and yang symbol and being right down the center. This technique has everything to do with the urinary bladder channel, which is your spinal cord connected to your central nervous system, and we'll go more into that. So as I was saying, I work as a medical and business intuitive. And this is a little bit of a long thing, but I incorporate my clairsentient abilities with my education in Chinese medicine. I'm a Chinese medical practitioner. I love homeopathy, which is biotherapeutic drainage. I am an herbalist, master in Western and Eastern. I don't like the word master, but I'm a master at Reiki, at energy. I do Kundalini yoga. I work a lot with energy movement as well. And when I speak of energy, I'm just speaking of those atoms and molecular structures that we may not see. I also do nutrition, you name it, and I do it. Basically, I am super nerdy in devouring knowledge, and I'm very, very grateful that I get to work on a daily basis helping people with not only their health concerns, but what else they might need in their emotional life. Again, love, money. Keep that in the back of it. And when I say love, just not romance, but all relationships. If you're in fear, in Chinese medicine, the opposite of fear is love. So that's where we're going to go. Next, neuro-emotional healing. So this is the outline. I know, I'm talking to make sure you guys understand where we're going to go, and then I'm going to go back. Neuro-emotional healing, explain. What is it? There are a lot of different techniques that I learned out there, and the more that I learned, I realized they all had one base foundation concept, which is if you can take the body and attach it to the mind and the spirit, then you get a lot of healing done. In this particular model, I am offering you, it will be to look at the cognitive. So neuro-emotional healing via cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. Okay? So if we're looking at those three models, I will guide you in explaining this, and we all get to do this work. Because I figured that I wasn't sure how many people might go on, and I really wanted to be more in service, and I thought, heck, everyone can do this one process, and at the end I will do readings. Whoever has a question or whatnot can also ask questions, but for now I'm just going to guide you all through this work and see how it resonates with you. And again, please take notes so that practice makes perfect. Practice, practice, practice. I like very much how oh my goodness, in Mind Valley they always say we look to do disciplines, not disciplines. So I offer you that in saying, how do I discipline, having bliss while I'm doing this, evoking your heart or the center of your core. And I'll go over that in a second. Next in the outline, you focus on that issue and work it out. Again, I will be guiding you through that. And then at the end, I will be picking people to assist for further, help via reading or scanning them. And then we're going to close with a 3-minute meditation. And I hope everybody hangs in there because, again, we're running rather late. I apologize. They had another meeting in the global living room. So with that being said, we already went into why me. Again, being born with these abilities, this is a little bit of what I do. I'm also an ordained shaman, interfaith minister, and I can connect with people who have passed on. So if some of you have someone you want to communicate, it is not that I look into a magic black ball. It's just that the past, the present, and the future are all here now. So if you can understand or just imagine the concept of all moments are here right now, and you're living in this here now moment, then you can understand that all of these dimensions can be manifested and controlled by your thought turning into your action. Okay? Again, neuro-emotional healing. The first point is cognitive. In cognitive, what we will be doing is I'm going to ask you right now if you're looking at situation that okay, I think I need to first, because some of you may not know this that have not worked with me, I always ask that you put the tip of your tongue behind your teeth and your gum line. Why? Because in Chinese medicine, this is the yin channel and this is the yang channel. Yang means bright, light, masculine. Okay? Yin means the more protective, the solid organs within our body, and it's really the feminine aspect. So when you do this kind of breath where the tongue, again, is placed right here, you will connect your feminine and your masculine.
Does it matter if it's the upper or lower?
Oh, it does matter. In Kundalini Yoga, it's always in the top of the palate. In this kind of Chinese medicine, is literally behind your teeth and your gum line, touching more, I suppose, in the gum line, if that's what you mean. But as long as the bottom of your tongue touches the teeth. Okay, so with this kind of breath, you breathe in and out. And I'm exaggerating it. You don't have to open your mouth wide, but just so you can practice, I'm always asking that you breathe in threes. As Nikolai Tesla showed us, everything happens in the realm of these odd numbers, and 3 and 6 and the 9. And I don't know, did you guys know that he refused, first of all, to have a solid home? And second of all, he only lived in hotels or places where all of the numbers would equal a 3, a 6, or a 9. I find that really fascinating because even if you, maybe you don't know about it actually, I would ask that you look into, sorry, I'm getting a message. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Anyway, I would ask you to really think about what does it mean to have a feminine and a masculine aspect of self. So with that being said, you breathe in and out, and you do that in your own, at your own pace 3 times. And I want you to think of a situation. Again, we're going to identify a thought and then discuss the internal dialogue and see what the internal dialogue associated with that recollection is. Because there is a few of us, I am going to ask you guys if you want to unmute yourself, if anyone has any particular thought or anything you want to work on, whether it's a childhood trauma or anything like that. Any volunteers? Oh, come on, people, don't be shy. All right, fine. We're going to move on to the next slide then.
I have something, Gloria.
Okay. Thank you. So if you look at this lovely picture I have here, again, how are we going to do this? This is only going into the cognitive, and then we'll go into the emotional and behavioral. Okay, so before you speak, I want to just go over this model. Number one, you identify a possible childhood trauma. So, for example, it might look like um, I I experienced some really bad news at the beginning of this year. So that led me to remember a childhood trauma, the initial part of where I remember this issue. And you develop a conditioned response based on whatever happened to you as a child. You develop a conditioned response, and then the result is this stimulus generalization, which means like if I'm a child and I see a dog and he's hairy and the dog barks and I get scared, I build a conditioned response in my mind that becomes that stimulus generalization. So that when I get older, if I see anything with a lot of hair, maybe a man with a lot of beard, or a cat or any kind of furry animal, I'll immediately relate it to that issue. Does that make sense? Okay. What is the something, Franz?
Unmute myself. Does it have to do with just childhood trauma, or just something that we just want to work on or bless?
Yeah, something you want to work on, but I promise you I'm going to take it to a childhood trauma. Ha ha.
Okay. Well, something. Maria's pregnant again, and we're actually we're expecting literally any moment.
Awesome.
If she went into labor like in the next 3 seconds, it would be right on time. And what I would say is that not so much for me. I just want to, and we're having another boy, by the way.
Of course you are.
We're gonna have a lot of testosterone in this house. For my new baby son, I would just want to, I've been very distracted for the last 9 months, and
Go ahead.
Okay, you're doing your thing. You're doing your thing.
Yes, I'm doing my thing.
I've been very distracted for the last 9 months, and I just want him to know that his papa loves him, and that he knows he's loved and he's safe.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if I've been a bit distant.
That is perfect. Thank you for sharing that because, and by the way, again, just because we are the amount of people we are, I want to make sure everybody's following with what is being discussed and taught here. So we have the trauma, okay, and I did say anything that you have going on right now, and again, but this method really asks you to go back to a childhood trauma of something similar. What I mean by that, hold on, is that everything, as I began this, everything that ever happens to us really happens on an emotional side. People come to me with stage 4 cancer, but it always goes back, whatever terminal condition or whatever their top. And again, why I really felt called to do this is because the people that are coming to me now are having really rude psychic awakenings where they experience everything being just shower of love, 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 as if they were on a plant teacher medicine ayahuasca trip and they're not doing ayahuasca. Okay. It says this meeting will end in 10 minutes. I hope that's not true. If this does end, I'm going to ask them to redo this meeting, okay? Because that did not give me the time. It's only 33 minutes so far. Anyway, so the emotional nature means that there's an emotion that had to happen. So all of you will identify your emotions and recollect what was elicited through what your belief system was. How? We're going to use this 5 emotional theory in traditional Chinese medicine. So, and I know some of you know this, but I'm going to go through some of you who don't. I think it's really, really fascinating that what you're speaking of is right here, Franz. And I say, I think it's perfect, right? Because it's about the lungs. And that's because I scanned you, and yes, it's in your lungs. But remember, each one of us is really manifesting. The matrix is for real, people. Okay? If you haven't, please see The Matrix or What the Bleep Do We Know. I always say those are really documentaries on how life really is. So when we're thinking something, as I began this talk, if you think it, you will act it, you will manifest it. All of our thoughts matter. All of our 100% of humanity on the planet had to have gotten to this, as they call them, the 98% people of not having such positive thoughts, not understanding that they're beyond abundant, that if you walk out into the street, you cannot count how many leaves are on a tree. And so that there's something, universal energy, higher power, God. I love the acronym of God is generator, organizer, and the D stands for deliverer or destroyer, the yin and the yang. It's just energy, right? So if we're walking through our life, and again, we're using your situation that you allowed us to, and thank you for that. It really has to do with sadness and sorrow. And it really is in the lungs. And you could say, well, it's my wife who's pregnant. But what I want is to let him know that he's loved and all that. So we'll work on that, right? So you will be identifying the emotion of the lungs, which again stands for sadness and sorrow. And remember, in Chinese medicine, there are always paired organs. There is always a positive and negative yin and yang. So in this case, the lung is the yin, it's the solid matter, but the yang is the large intestine. So all of us right now, we go, and we're not able to breathe because of all the chaos that's going around us. But if we think, oh wait, the opposite, or the partner, the husband and wife relationship, to simplify things, would be the large intestine. How can I get myself having better bowel movements? How do I eat more natural foods that are rich in fiber, dark green leafy vegetables, fruits, papaya, to help me digest my emotional, spiritual, and physical happenings from my spiritual nature via this formed body? Okay, so that again would be the lungs. But mind you, if we look at this model, and again, in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, the metal, each organ set, each element is mom son relationship. So if the mom is the metal, she must feed her son the water, and then the water becomes mom, which is the kidneys, and that's where fear and love reside, right? So then the mom becomes the water, and the son becomes wood. And in the wood element, we have anger and compassion. Oh, by the way, the opposite of fear is love. The opposite of anger is compassion. So if your daily to-dos is getting really, really angry, or having resentments, or any of those adjectives under that emotion, I really ask you to go, wow, how can I come into compassion? I'm not going to be angry, because in Western medicine, as we know, the liver really does supply bile, and this bile that is stored in the gallbladder gets spit. The liver goes, okay, it's time for you to poop, large intestine, and it spits this bile out into the large intestine to have us have a bowel movement. But if emotionally we're overthinking this anger thing and having absolute resentments, guess what? No one will be able to then progress into compassion. So that again, the wood element becomes mom, and the relationship is mom, and fire becomes son. In fire we have the heart. Heart is the solid one, and I always call it, imagine you were playing a chess game. If you're playing a chess game, the heart really, really, really is the king in a chess board, and the queen would be your liver. So if the liver's not behaving, meaning being in compassion, but instead getting resentful, getting angry at everything that's going on, the heart cannot at all do its job. And in the small intestine, and I say this from working with a lot of people, I always find that when someone's having issues in the small intestine, it really has to do with previous lives. Hear me out. If you don't believe in previous life, please believe in DNA genetic information in your family lineage, because that's where it's at. And I can go on about in acupuncture, you can trip people into previous lives. I can do it over the phone, but I mastered this again with many years of practice. So if we look at the fire as being the mom, the sun becomes the earth, right? Check it out. That's the spleen. That's your ability to have immunity. Our spleen is supposed to release those T lymphocytes, those cells that create the ATP to fight any kind of virus, any kind of infection, anything going on. Okay, the spleen, by the way, is a small little solid organ here, solid, that is the wife, if we're looking at the wife-husband relationships in that manner. And the husband is the stomach. And if you know you have 7 chakras, the 3rd chakra is the meeting point between heaven and earth. Okay? So, again, the mom then becomes the earth. And guess what? The sun is the metal. So, if the mom, and for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to make something up. Imagine that you have a mom who's a total terrible mom. She's an alcoholic. She maybe got abused her whole life, and she's not there for you. She leaves you alone all the time. So guess what? The mom is not going to feed that child, right? That lung. So again, what I'm hearing in this case is that really this is a situation of sadness and sorrow. And I'll tell you something, when I go out in the street, I really, really get a headache because I can feel everybody's sadness and sorrow and fear. Okay? A lot of people are experiencing mostly that, sadness, sorrow, and fear. And again, the opposite of that is coming from happiness and love. And I hope you understand the complexity I'm explaining here, because it's not, let's just, I hate to say it like that, but let's just think our thoughts away. No, you actually have to discipline yourself. You have to have a practice every morning. In the morning, you're meditating, you're moving your body, you're exercising. In the evening, doing a gratitude journal to make sure that even what I do in my own personal life is I actually have alarms in my phone to remind me, what am I grateful for? Or any kind of other message I want to give myself. So again, in this case, I want you to think of whatever emotion or situation, whatever situation you want to work on, and ask your brain, I said, what you think, which of these might resonate with this situation I'm having right here, right now. Okay? Now, for example, in Francis' case, you would be taking a snapshot of this moment right here, right now. We're right now building, imagine I place a child with a mask, but the truth of the matter is that we're building trauma going through this isolation and fear period. If you isolate and you create fear in someone, you can control them, right? And so I'm asking you all to go away. This is a matrix, and I control me. I give myself heart and love and everything I need. So the next part of this process, when you breathe in and out, I asked you to imagine a situation, okay? I want you to take a snapshot of that event and what it meant to you at that time. So without thinking, just go, in that situation, how old am I and where am I? And you could close your eyes to do this, just to kind of get that as part of what we're going to do next. Okay?
Just any situation?
Yeah, whatever you want to work out right now. So next, your spinal cord is the road of the path of life. In Chinese medicine, we are taught, Western medicine, when you you go, Maria, who is pregnant, will go and get an ultrasound. The first thing you hear and see is this little tiny little blood vessel that is the heartbeat. And so in Western medicine, they believe that the heart is the first organ that appears. In traditional Chinese medicine, over 10,000 years old, we are shown that the first organ energetically that is really, really formed is the urinary bladder. So there's this tiny, in the embryo, when it starts to split, okay, it goes from 2 to 4 and it just keeps splitting. The first thing you see going through it is this little vein that is the blood sac that starts vibrating before the heart ever appears. After this split happens, that vein splits into two. I think it's so beautiful when it splits into two, then two little kidneys are formed. That's called the vitality gate, our gate of life, of vitality, our portal to enter this physical realm from a spiritual realm, taking into account that next the brain is built, and I call the brain the heart, because the smartest brain in your body is your heart. Heart math, please look that up. They've done a lot of wonderful research around these findings. Heart math has scientific, how can I say, it's just a lot of work on what I'm saying to be true, because I always say, don't believe me, go research yourself. Anyway, once we have those two split, the kidneys, then up on the top is where the heart is created, then the spinal cord is grown, and you've seen we kind of look like tadpoles with this big brain and this little tail almost, and in that's when we actually develop finally the brain and the spinal cord. So here I have for you the urinary bladder is this blue channel. Please look at this whole structure. The center is right here, which is our vertebra. On either side of the vertebra, there's actually a whole bunch of nerve endings that are attached to different organs in the body. And again, in TCM, in energetic ways of thought, and many other traditions, as well as Ayurvedic, what they found is that those energy centers are inner organs. So again, the more female aspect, and then outer organs or the more masculine aspect. A lot of times when I work on people on the outer realm of the urinary bladder, they feel like they have wings and they can fly. It's pretty cool. Especially when I do like hypno birthday acu sessions, they're like, oh, I'm flying and I got wings. It's for real, people. Anyway, here is, and on your own, please look up urinary bladder channel. This is a lovely picture of what we're going to be working in. From your T1, which starts from your first vertebra, is if you put your finger in the back of your neck and you feel that bump, okay, that big bump, if you move your neck around, it should move. That's your C7, okay? Underneath that, if you go, that's in not the bone, but in between the other bone and that one right there, that is the windpipe area. That's the one below that is the bone, which is thoracic 1. Then you go into a bump, and in between there, that's the energy of the lungs, okay? And then the next bone, you see it says T3 lungs. That's on either side is where the urinary bladder flows energetically. Oh, and I'm really excited that now there's the scientific provings that they found that the meridians are just shootings of water, like water through a hose really, really fast. They never found it before because it didn't have musculature like the circulatory system has veins and capillaries, and the lymphatic system has no muscles, but it's still in there. Now they finally found the meridians and the channels. It's just water flowing through, and that's where you can get the chi, the energy source. Anyway, if you, again, on your own, you could find all of these, but what I'm asking you to do is to use your imagination. I want you to focus on what area your problem, situation, issue might reside. Since we're doing the lungs, coronavirus thing has to do with lungs, okay? People are not being able to breathe. I'm pretty sure that I had coronavirus at the beginning of the year when I fell sick for 6 weeks and couldn't move. And quite honestly, I am glad that, well, I do what I do. One, so I took care of it, but two, I feel strongly that because it was for a really, really tough situation having to do with people I'm closest to, uh, a, a male friend of mine, and feeling sort of betrayed. My mom, my brother being very ill, and my daughter. I'll leave it at that. So I got hit, but I also got hit. So you reflect your inner environment and it gets created. So again, if you look at these, just on your own time, find out what each one of those areas are. And then if you have a pain, if for example you go, wow, I'm not digesting my food well, you would go and you would look up where the spleen point is here, okay? And you want to rub that. Oh, and by the way, the stomach, you literally point to the stomach and you go around, and there you just massage with your knuckles to work out on that issue, okay? Next is behavioral. So we're going to look at how the recollections affected your actions, what relationships, success or lack thereof happen. So again, in the case we're working on right now with Franz, it is really about this sort of long situation of the sadness and sorrow of how do I take action on this relationship? How have I held it? And you very, very well said, well, I feel like I haven't been present. So that will create you to sort of beat yourself up. If you guys ever read, or I recommend you read, The Biology of Belief, okay, and another book called Power versus Force. In these two books, again, they do medical testings, and in Power versus Force, you could Google Power versus Force chart. And in that chart, you're going to find that we are electromagnetic fields. They put sort of this electrical system, and they put people in front of computers and they show them the emotion of sadness and then what hurts that sadness was in. Okay, anger. And as we go up, we go from contracting energy to expanding energy. So once you go into joy and happiness at that top level, that's where you can heal. Hence why I named my business Heal, Holistic Everyday Approach to Life, because I wanted to come from that space. All right, so if everybody's ready, I am going to ask you to sit as straight as you can, okay? And I really mean to keep your spine as straight as you can, and you want to have your chin parallel to the floor, okay? And we're going to do that breath work, breathing in through your nose and breathing out. And I'm going to ask you to center yourself, to imagine that urinary bladder, the thoracic structure that I showed you, the spinal cord. Imagine with your eyes closed, please, that you are allowing your energy to flow down all the way up to your coccyx and up all the way to the top of your head. And as you breathe in and out, I want you to imagine that suddenly the energy shoots out through the top of your head and goes into the universe. And I want you to grab that universal energy 3 times, circle it, and imagine that you can actually feel in every cell of your structure as it comes back down to the top of your head, and it fills your head, your neck, your shoulders, down your arms into every single one of your fingertips, your whole body, abdominal area, down your legs all the way down to your toes, and it shoots down into the center of Mother Earth. Imagine it cycling 3 times there, and imagine that it goes back up through the bottom of your feet or your coccyx point, whichever you would like. And you breathe in and out, going up into the heavens and back down into the center of Mother Earth. And again, as you're looking at the issue, I want you to go back in time and think of this issue that you want to work on today. Where are you and how old are you? And as you imagine where you are and how old you are, I want you to identify your internal dialogue. What did I feel? So again, for example, Franz, he's fearing the birth of this child, of wanting the child who is not yet born, because he understands that we can communicate to this life form to know that he's here and he's present. So what do you want to communicate? Identify your thought, your internal dialogue. Perhaps it's a situation of a love situation or a financial one. I want you to imagine whatever that is, that you are a certain age and where you are. And again, it might be right here, right now. And take a picture, a snapshot, and freeze it in time, because past, present, and future are man-made. So I want you to imagine that you have this photograph in front of your third eye, your frontal lobe cortex, in your mind's eye. And I want you to scan your spine now, going up and down, because we have that funnel of energy open, and feel that you are your best healer, because you are. And imagine that you can see where in your spine you have a blockage, something that is it's blocking you. And as you're going to scan it, I want you to imagine that you take your two fingers on either side of that vertebra in your spine, and you imagine that you're tapping it. Energetically, you're tapping it. Maybe a family member who loves you very well, who's passed on, is tapping it. Whatever you wish to imagine that it's being tapped, and you're tapping yourself back into health. I want you to imagine that as you have that snapshot picture in your brain, that you suddenly crumble it up, and we're going to put it on fire. Imagine it goes on fire. And using your inhale and your exhale, keep breathing into creating now. Imagine you're taking a new snapshot. And in this new snapshot, you're inhaling everything you want to see in that ideal, optimal version of you, of the situation, right here, right now, or back then, wherever you are, and however old you are. So take a new snapshot of that picture. When you take a new snapshot of that picture, I want you to imagine that you keep tapping in the back of your urinary bladder, and you're literally having that picture turn into this amethyst or white light or ice blue light, and that it becomes a ball of light, possibly the size of a golf ball, and that it is in your frontal lobe cortex, and you bring it to your pineal gland, and you let it vibrate there, expanding and decreasing. Imagine that energy flowing down your spine now and up, and now bring it into your heart. And imagine that that new picture, that new snapshot you just took, is there. The other picture, the trauma, the situation, whatever you're working on, has disappeared. It's no longer there. You don't need it anymore. And as you breathe in and out, know that you can do this sort of process with any situation you have going on. Breathe in, inhaling new beautiful light and letting out anything you no longer need. And now you can open your eyes again. And what I'm going to ask of you is that tonight you journal, or after this call, please journal about what you found. Also first thing in the morning. Okay, so journal tonight and tomorrow morning. Any questions?
I think I'm still not clear on the snapshot, because what I was finding wasn't like it's something that I haven't finished, so it's not a memory that I have, it's just a thing that I would like to resolve and complete.
No,
so,
and that's perfect. You have to trick your monkey mind, your brain, into that there is no past and there is no future. So you said, well, it's not done. So it's kind of, our ego always wants to get in the way. Our brain, our monkey mind is what I call the ego. It really wants to get in the way just so that you can have a really valid reason why you cannot do this particular thing. And I mean the collective you, not just you. Okay? So if you can understand it this way, you go, okay, I'm going to make believe then when I do this technique again, Gloria's asking me to go into the future because I can. And in my breath work, I'm going to step into the future and I'm going to imagine that it's already complete. And what did I need to work out? And the same thing goes for the pregnant couple. they can imagine their son already being born and feeling
But
completely loved.
for the starting snapshot, do I just kind of composite a random scene of me like not finishing something?
Whatever you feel that the situation is. Okay? And so when you do the breath work in and out, what I really would like you to do is to again go, okay, is this snapshot right here, right now real? Or can I go back in time? When did I first initially think, wow, I cannot complete this? What age was I and where was I? And then sometimes a new snapshot comes in because your brain has, it's that powerful. It really has that ability. Does that make sense?
Helping.
Okay, so do you have any other questions around that? 3.
Not yet. Like, yeah, not yet.
All right, well, so because this is an open reading time, may I read you?
Definitely.
This is what you signed on for, sister.
Thanks for picking me.
Oh no, divine order picked you. You asked the question. So anyway, if we look at the whole of it, what I'm hearing is it's in your digestive, okay, in the stomach and spleen area. So it's kind of like, so what I would really highly recommend is that every morning, if you're not already doing it, please have just plain old hot water with lemon. And then hopefully you like papaya or any other kind of digestive teas before bed like mint. And again, doing this process, you can imagine yourself wherever you want as a child, right here, right now, or in the future. I suggest the future, since this is an event that's happening right now, because time travel is possible in our pineal gland. Did you guys ever see that movie Contact with Jodie Foster? That is for real. That satellite really hit Puerto Rico. And there really is a chair. And if you remember in the movie, I love that they put her sort of like, they twirl her around in the same forms as sacred geometry. If you don't know about this, please Google sacred geometry. There's a lot of wonderful work out there. And by the way, the yin and yang symbol are a whole bunch of circular movements within that flower of life, is what it's called in sacred geometry. So anyway, in your case, my dear, it really is about your digestive, which again, it is your meeting point between the heavens and the earth right here, right now. And this is not my opinion, since we do not know each other on that level. I hope you hear this with the love I am sending it to you. What I'm hearing is that there's a very strong female influence that has you believing something about yourself that is just really not so. And everyone is allowed to have their own opinion, but you go, thank you for your opinion. And you move it over and you go, okay, now what do I do? If we're blocked in that digestive area, and I do dare say we hatchers are, because we're very significant driven. We want to save the world. We're constantly like going and doing because we're just like, oh my God, we're running out of time. Story of my life, okay? But if we breathe into it and you go, okay, when it rains, earth makes mud. And in mud is where the human being is created. In mud, there was a German doctor, Dr. Schussler, who did not do a very nice thing, but he was a big contributor to our health today. He used to buy people that were on death row, and he would burn them at different temperatures to see what would happen. I know this sounds horrible, but this is a true story. And he developed Schussler mineral salts. So what I'm hearing in your case is that you could do very good by a Schussler salt called calcium phosphoricum. Okay, Google it, get it, take 3 of those 3 times a day. I hesitate because I was testing you. Calcium phosphoricum, Schussler salt, 6x. Okay, so you'll see that I'm going to explain. So calcium, it really does come in the Schussler salt way of thought, and it's really, really cool. It's sort of to put it very, very lamely, energy-based medicine, right? But we really are made of 13 sacred minerals. The top three are gold, silver, and copper. I put a lot of my patients on one of those specific ones if they are going through some sort of quick awakening or psychic attack. Is like, as I was saying, I wish that the people that, whatever, they're not here. Maybe. I think Hatch is recording this, and we can get that going so that other people can hear it. But there's this one particular woman, and you'll know when you see this. I'm speaking of you. When you told me about your awakening in New York City, I was blown away, and the reason why you brought me to tears is because at least I've had a whole lifetime of seeing dead people, of seeing the unseen, of trying to figure out why I can astrally project, leave my body. And there's a lot of people out there that are doing plant teacher medicine, ayahuasca, microdosing LSD. It's all the rave. My concern is that you must be in the light of your truth, that through meditation, as silly as that may sound, through breath work, through doing these kind of practices, you own your body and you own your own truth. And I need you guys to understand, I'm not saying, don't do it. I always say I'm my worst guinea pig, so of course I have. And but I'm able to kind of come back into my body because it's easy for me. But I really was terrified when a lot of people who did plant teacher medicine would come back, and they were really, really open, and I would literally have to energetically do certain work, even massaging certain points in the body to bring them back into their physical form, because then they feel disconnected. And the bottom line is, we're not disconnected. We really, really are this unconditional loving energy that we call our higher power, the universe, or whatever, and we are not alone. We really are not. We're one planet. How could we think that there's no other life forms in all of the other dimensions and planets and whatnot? I love that there's this guy, and again, somebody else you could look up, Matias de Stefano, and Matias had the nerve to do something that I never did, which is he came on full throttle in Gaia classes, saying he remembers where he came from. Only lately did I dare to say I remember where I came from, also coming back here, because I was so afraid of what people would think and da-da-da. But now I'm here to be in service to humanity, and in that, you're here to be in service to humanity, all of you, every single one of us. That's our purpose. Our mission is very different for each one of us individually, right? But in your case, I repeat, the digestive, I call them like light switches on and off. Your light switch just kind of is off. So I'm going to ask you to turn it on by going, I am safe. I belong here, and doing a lot of affirmations. It's really fun to do I am meditations a la Dr. Wayne Dyer. If you haven't, I recommend, again, in a morning practice, you could just repeat that over and over into your head. He talks about how I am that is really, I am a healer, that I am, and that's how you say it. And there's so many other things that I wish I could share, but there's just like not enough time. And I really hope that that helps. But I really, really repeat, journal around it. Your female energetics, if you will. It has to do with issues with self first. And when I say issues, I mean just understanding your truth of not the immediately mom, child, love partner, sibling, anyone that is of the feminine in your case. So I hope that helps. Anyone have any other questions? God, you're all shy. Okay.
Maybe you can just, the readings are open, Gloria?
Yeah.
Gloria, the readings are open.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe you can just, tell me how my son is doing. If, hopefully he's happy and healthy and at peace, and knowing that both his parents, his mom and his dad, love him very much.
When is he supposed to be born?
Technically, his due date is or was April 20th, April 21. But I had the strong sensation he was going to, show up a little bit earlier. So did Maria.
Nah. He's hanging in there. And again, what I was saying to you, do you guys have a name yet?
What?
Do you have a name yet?
He's saying what?
Do you have a name?
We think we've kind of come around to a name. We think. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Ian Eduardo.
Wow. Powerful. Okay.
But we're not quite wedded to it yet.
Right. So the reason why I asked for the name is so I can grab his energy better. You know that. And it's similar to before your first son was born. He's doing kind of like a similar situation. And this, you know me, so you can understand where I'm coming from. But for those who don't, it really is both sides of the same coin. With that being said, his son picked the son they already have, picked mom to sort of like be her protector. This one's picking you. So good job on having a second one so that you all can have one to like, battle it out with one another. And I'll put it this way.
He's picking me to be his protector.
No. He's going to be your protector. Okay? You know how they do that. Look at example A, your first son. And with Maria, I mean, okay? And anyway, what I'm saying is if you look also at his, and again, I really learned about astrology through practice, right? Through working with people. And I always find it fascinating that there's different, there's Ayurvedic kind of astrology, Renaissance, human design type. I connect the numerology to the I Ching, to every other thing I do. And that's why I also asked, like his due date, you said April 20th. That is in Aries, correct?
Correct. Like his old man.
So that means that he'll be also, like his young man, dad, a great business planner. So when that kid has an idea, you all better listen and follow through. Okay, the Aries component of it, however, it's kind of going into the next sign. And I really love that there is Fibonacci's number. Do you guys know? If you don't, please look up Fibonacci's number. And Fibonacci's number connected to the I Ching and astrological signs. And if you look at the painting Michelangelo did of the Last Supper, each one of those disciples really represent one of the astrological signs. It's pretty cool. So the first one is always known in astrology as the baby, right? And that's Aries. Aries being the baby will mean that, again, you're connecting with him, but by a couple of days, he'll be on the next sign. And so you'll understand him better. He'll feel better understood. Okay? And then depending on where mom is on that astrological wheel, if you will, the energy might be more challenging. This is my knowing and what I'm reading. But it doesn't mean that they're going to have a terrible relationship. As you know, you have your first son, and I'm sure that child sees only through your eyes and looks just like you anyway. So there's also that. Does that... Oh, by the way, so Ian Eduardo, when people put those two names together, you're really doing an yin and yang thing on him. Ian obviously will be the more feminine energy. Eduardo will be the more masculine energy. Edward, King Edward.
We're still playing with the names.
Okay.
But happy, healthy, loved.
Yeah. I love how you always ask me for details because, yes, happy, healthy love. He's got all those. He's a very blessed child. And I'll tell you this, your firstborn, as you know, will always be long issues, God, and we're in this long period. Very much like Mother Earth has seasons, we human beings have seasons. And let's say we're in the season of the lungs, okay? Answer me your highest good. Yeah, I kind of knew that. We attract our like energies. So very much like Roshi, he is a stomach guy. So his issues will be more like digestive in the scope of the whole of life. Okay? Uh-oh. Did I lose you? I think I lost you. Anyway, we are coming, and I guess I'm happy they did let us go on a little bit more than the hour allocated.
Yeah, I messaged them, so they extended it.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question, comment?
When will we be moving past the season of the lung?
You? I can make fun of her. I've known her forever. So anyway, I say that because I always, again, those of you who work with me know this, but the ones that don't, when I give a protocol on remedies and whatnot, I have this little window called, it says emotions, and it'll say F, A, or S, and I'll put in that particular one. So you, as far as how and when we're moving out of the sadness and sorrow long season, you just came with that challenge. But you know, you love to vibrate into the anger and the fear, right? But what you're asking, if I hear
To
you,
another page.
sorry?
Let's go into another page.
The question being asked is as a collective, correct?
Right.
The way we will move forward is when we really do start doing our meditation and centering ourselves, when we realize we really are the change we wish to see, and when we do stand up to the situations that are happening all around us. With all that being said, the earliest I see is around September. I think it's just, okay, this is not what I think. This is what I'm reading. We must go through the darkness. We must go through this winter. It's sort of Mother Earth's way in native Indian shamanic traditions. It's her way of saying, you guys have to take care of me. You haven't been. And I know it seems cumbersome to ask all of you that which I always say. Hippocrates constantly said, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. How can you eat from a healthier stance? I don't say this lightly, and again, this is not my opinion, but I never ever tell anyone what to eat because some of them may need to have animal products, but when you get to a certain level of vibration, a lot of the plant-based diet would be the best way to go if you really want to move from this delusion that we're creating. If that makes sense, I hope it does, because it's just the way things are for now. Just make sure you're having a lot of dark leafy vegetables and a plant-based diet. And again, I'm not telling you all to then become vegan or plant-based. You do what you want. But once you start doing more meditations and things like this, these people that have been calling me now that I'm, new people that I've been working on, it fascinates me. And it does scare me, by the way, that they're not even hungry. They just want to drink water. And I'm like, whoa, wait, you can't go from eating all this kind of diet to water? It's great if you are a yogi master somewhere in India or a Buddhist monk somewhere in Tibet, but we're here, right now, so we do need to adhere to whatever we think is in our highest good. My suggestion is more plant-based. In your case, okay, let me go there. Especially right now, anything that has to do with the lungs. I hear that everybody is creating ways to find respirators. Instead, we could do things like, oddly enough, the herb called yarrow. True story. Yarrow, it really opens up everything and it helps everything come through us and detoxify us regardless. My go-to, I say this virus. By the way, there's been a whole bunch of MERS, SARS. There's been so many viruses. Every year we have a virus. It's just part of Mother Earth, right? But each virus has a personality, and the personality of this virus is a Native American Indian herb called Osha, OSHA. I always prefer things in liquid because we are over 80% water. So the more that you put liquid in your body, the more your body can assimilate it. Okay. Aside from that, in Chinese medicine, there is a formula called Yin Chao, YIN, and the second word is QIAO. Yin Chao formula is great open of the lungs. And as I was saying to Roshi earlier, the peppermint plant has a lot of fun cousins. Peppermint, basil, osha, hierbabuena, and bauha. They're all part of that same family of opening up the lungs herbs. So even in our own daily practice, I would highly recommend that you take some form of a lung opener herb, whether it's a tea or an extract, And again, doing breath work, doing Kundalini yoga, so that you can see the truth of what's going on. Through doing these different Kundalini yoga exercises, something as simple as, the spinal flex. You keep your chin parallel to the ground and you inhale up and exhale down. And you just keep doing that for 3 minutes every day. It really gets that whole urinary bladder, okay? One other thing, I've heard that microchips, nanochips are starting to be put in. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's kind of scary. I know two people who have one, and they're putting them in right here. That is detrimental to your health. Why? Because that is the large intestine meridian meeting the lung meridian in one perfect point in time. So if any of you ever have a headache or a head cold, or you're not feeling well, thyroid issues, anything like that, massage that point. But I mean like hurt yourself massage. And it's a point called Hegu, Hegu, if you want to look it up. And that really does help. Again, because the large intestine, remember, is the husband of the lungs, who's the wife. Okay? So I think I would love for us all now, I'm going to put a timer on, if we could do a 3-minute meditation and close out with your intent. Please journal your findings and journal tomorrow morning and journal forever. And so I'm going to ask all of you to sit with your spine straight, tip of the tongue behind the teeth and the gum line. Close your eyes. And inhaling and exhaling, let's begin. Great. So thank you everyone for sharing your time with me, and I hope that you have been informed in the best way possible. And if you have any questions, let me know. You know how to find me. Okay. Thank you everyone, and have a blessed
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.